Everyone is creative.
A creative life requires
bravery and action,
honesty and hard work.
We're here to support and celebrate.
And encourage you to make the things that you love.
We believe in the power of community.
We believe in giving a damn.
We believe in face-to-face connections.
In learning from others.
In hugs.
And high fives.
We bring together people who are driven by passion and purpose.
Confident they will inspire one another.
And inspire change in neighborhoods and cities around the world.
Everyone.
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 Everyone is welcome.
Give a huge Creative Mornings welcome to the incomparable Mr. Reid.
I didn't know that I was thanked there. So if you're a certain age, you totally understand this image. Blossom could not have been Blossom without six. Our lives and our experiences are shaped by the people around us, the characters in our lives. And I'm not just talking about family and friends or colleagues, but we're also shaped by people in our lives who play the role of fifth business. Some of you may recognize this as the name of a compelling coming-of-age novel by Robertson Davies. And if you're not familiar with the term, it comes from opera, describing a character who neatly enters the scene, advances the plot, and leaves with little fanfare. Now, six was obviously far more important to Blossom than to be relegated to fifth business, but a sitcom sidekick and a whole host of fifth business players is really what we all need in our lives, at least at some point. She could often be the voice of reason to encourage Blossom to focus more or less attention on some temporary day player role and their brief influence, but no matter what, Blossom needed six, absolutely. She needed six to be sure in her decisions. We all need a six at least some of the time. In my life, I know I've had relationships that mirror that exchange between Blossom and six. I know I've played the role of fifth business in the lives of others, and especially students. And of course, many people have unknowingly played that role in my life. What matters is that the relationships formed, the plot of my life advanced, or the creativity that has sprung from the human interaction, that's something we can hold on to and maintain. I'd like to first take a few minutes to explain how I came to be standing here today and acknowledge a few instances where creativity, mentorship, and a trusty sidekick have shaped who I am today. Thank you.
A recent photo?
There was a time when I was cute. I grew up in a rural part of Ontario, and if you have an interest in British humor, you may enjoy the fact that I grew up just outside of a village called Little Britain. My first piano lessons, my first time in a school band, and my first public performances all happened here. Although technically my first public performances were in the basements of United churches all across Victoria County, and in a Christmas pageant where, as a young and insistent child, I insisted that the apex of the story would be far more meaningful if someone played the role of King Herod, because why would you leave him out of the Christmas pageant? It was the first time I learned the importance of being prepared to live with the suggestions I would make. Guess who played Herod? The Academy Theatre in Lindsay, Ontario is itself a character in my story. It would be the stage on which I first performed in what felt like a real concert, a performance with the County Honor Band. It's also the site of the first concert I'd ever attend, the Nylons, a Canadian pop a cappella quartet. I was absolutely transfixed with them at age 6. My school experiences were all about music. Being in the school band gave me a serious sense of purpose. Randy Reid was my first band teacher, and I should acknowledge that my dad was also a band teacher. Randy Reid is unrelated to me. It's kind of a complicated small town thing where there's too many people with the last name Reid. Randy was my first band teacher and must have been the most incredibly patient teacher. As a clarinet player, I sat in the front row. That was a lot for him, I'm sure. It was that same year that I decided that when I grew up, I wanted to be a music teacher. Through a school musical that Randy wrote entitled The Mall, He pushed me to improvise, to take risks, and did it with a sense of humor. This would prove to be important many times over, decades later. Following high school, I moved to Victoria to go to UVic, and I made that choice because my music education heroes were on the West Coast. This photo was taken a little over 21 years ago. I was a student teacher doing my practicum at McGee. I received mentorship from a brilliant music teacher and clinician, the late John Trepp. I also learned from students like Brandon. I learned to think carefully about word choice and to be intentional about prioritizing and sequencing the work to be done. I came to know the reciprocity of the teacher-student relationship. It is as vital to prepare to teach as it is to be prepared to learn. I also learned how important that preparation would factor into my ability to solve problems in the moment. I was refining the improvisation skills I'd first experienced in beginning band so many years before. I was making in-the-moment decisions about how to apply creative skills and creative solutions and knowledge while learning how best to express those ideas. I spent nearly 10 years teaching band, choir, and symphony orchestra at Vantech. Thanks to support of colleagues and students, we took risks together. In this job, I would grow into the educator I am today, mentored by colleagues who spent most of their time actually in the foods lab, in the gym, or in the wood shop. And that may seem kind of unexpected, but we were all teaching students to discover what they were capable of, what the action and activity in the classroom looked like as something that they would carry with them all throughout their lives. In this photo, there are young people who've grown up to be touring musicians, pharmacists, doctors. One, actually in the front row there, is an artist who makes paper from invasive plant species. Her dad runs the Great Northern Way workshop as well. I've been able to reconnect with him in the last year, which is great. There are teachers, there's a cinematographer, there are architects, entrepreneurs, a design professor, and tradespeople. There is also a 16-foot styrofoam sculpted Godzilla. We had a tendency to go all in on projects. Go big or go home, just don't go silent. I should give credit, a guy named Aaron Jordan, who's a film sculptor. His son was a trumpet player in the band, and he made the 16-foot Godzilla, which had to be assembled inside the building. It was too big to get through any door in the school. The reality of being a music teacher is that you see these students almost daily for 5 years. We toured together to places like Banff and Disneyland and Seattle. We spent a great deal of time together. The relational nature of the job is made even more spectacular by the fact that these are young people discovering their world before your eyes. It's great. It's worth noting that Madison, the gifted harpist you heard earlier, came to join us in the Vantech Symphony Orchestra in grade 5. Her feet didn't touch the floor. So she'd have to work with her studio teacher to revise her parts so that they could be played on a lever harp rather than the pedal harp that you saw today. Imagine being 10 years old and joining a symphony orchestra of high school students. This all happened because a fifth business character, I cannot remember who, casually mentioned, oh, there's a kid at Nootka Elementary who plays the harp. And I, of course, responded, I need to meet this child. We have harp parts with the senior band and with the symphony orchestra. Talk about a plot advance. I believe the purpose of education is to show children how the world works and how to be happy in it. One of my favorite moments each year was the first couple of classes of beginning band. Trying to get to know the personality of a student meant surprising them with a demonstration of how much care goes into matching them with their instrument. I would check their wingspan, how long their fingers are, and ask questions about what sports or activities they enjoy. Through those questions, I could get a sense of their confidence, their willingness to trust, and what motivates them. Incidentally, swimmers and runners are a good fit for instruments that require greater lung capacity, and you will never find a bassoonist with short fingers. So why was this important? Well, the process revealed to everyone that each student could have a role to play in the band. There was a way for everyone to belong. On the other end of their high school journey, much like you see in this photo here, the parting words I offered to every group of graduating students, graduating musicians, was simple. go out into the world and make a difference in the lives of children. We're talking with Madison this morning. She's in nursing school right now, and her hope is to be a nurse at Children's Hospital. She took the advice. It was my attempt to cement how they could pay forward the mentorship they'd received from their peers and from our shared musical experiences at school. Through this period of my life, colleagues named Sandra, Nick, Amanda, Emma, and Rod would prove to be the six to my blossom. These were people I could learn from and who would offer the perspectives that would instill confidence in those decisions. Of all the fifth business folks in my life, I don't think I ever would have imagined that Shania Twain, Gene Simmons, Jennifer Hudson, and Andrea Bocelli would be counted among them. Imagine how much stature they have in this world, and I've just described them as fifth business. Let me explain. Each one entered neatly, advanced the plot of my life, and off they went. Shania Twain presented me with my Juno Award. Jennifer Hudson held my hand and sang to me at a concert in Dubai celebrating teachers. Earlier that day, I was a speaker in one conference room, and the speaker in the neighboring conference room was a former French president. And then 8 hours later, I'm sobbing like a child because Jennifer Hudson is singing to me. Gene Simmons visited our school, and while we were backstage listening to his children give an inspiring talk to our student population, he pulled me in with a side hug and said, "Let's just listen." Nobody was talking. Gene was a classroom teacher for about 6 weeks before getting a phone call and asked if he wanted to go on the road with a little-known band called Kiss. So given that he was a teacher for 6 weeks, I'd like to think that we're colleagues. And thank goodness there is no photographic or video evidence of the time that I was invited without warning to sing in front of a room of people waiting to hear Andrea Bocelli speak about the influential teachers in his life. I know this sounds made up, and it happened, and it was very terrifying. I was attending the Global Education and Skills Forum in Dubai, a conference that culminates with the announcement of the winner of the $1 Million Global Teacher Prize. I was a finalist, but I didn't win. I'm okay. The head of the organization had to announce to the room that the maestro was running a little behind, and there was a music teacher in the room who would provide some entertainment until he arrived. My confidence, improv skill, and willingness to take a risk would truly be tested. So I stood up, took a deep breath, and sang the only song that came to mind, our national anthem. I cannot explain why, but I know that when I sat down, I looked around and thought, everyone in the room right now was thinking, that guy's got some guts and needs some time to reflect. For all these unique and unexpected moments in my teaching career, the most freeing moment came in the form of a professional development workshop led by the folks at Lego Education. Simple instruction: use all 6 bricks to make a duck. Admittedly, I can't recall anything about the facilitators of this workshop because the learning was so powerful. I was at a table of 7 or 8 teachers, each from a different part of the world. We each created a different duck. Same instructions, different results. Each valid, well-reasoned, yet different from one another. So I think we have a little bit of time. I just wonder if maybe there's a couple of volunteers in the front row, especially one of our guests from Venezuela. I brought my briefcase today.
Yeah, you see, you're gonna put him up to work.
The instructions are very simple: to use all 6 of these pieces and to make a duck. Not 5 pieces. It has to be 6. Sure. Who won the bread last one? You here? Come on over a little closer. So the instructions are all very simple and very straightforward, right? Use all 6 pieces and make a duck. I've done this activity with high school students, elementary school students, teachers. It's very interesting to do this with art teachers. Slow process of carefully curating precisely the right combination of things. So as you take these pieces, that's a very interesting duck. In Venezuela, that's how they look. So for those of you that are holding the Lego in your hand right now, it's quite an amazing experience to put these 6 pieces together. And there's a particular way that I feel like I've always done this, and I have a particular duck that I like to use. But what is so interesting is that when you see the red plates, or you see the 2x2 yellow brick with an eye, you start to immediately think that I know what this is, I know what this can be. But it's that subtle decision making that goes on that we start to piece some things together, and we put together a duck that is very personally meaningful to us. So the folks that have the Lego, could you just hold it up for others to see? So very, very different looking ducks. And I hope that before you leave today, you can get a photo of those ducks and we can see a little bit about what they look like. What I think so fascinating about these 6 pieces, there are so many different combinations. But like I said, we create something that's personally meaningful to us. The duck activity is a simple metaphor revealing the complex decision-making process that we undertake applying our skills, knowledge, and experience to the task. As creative people, we especially enjoy the moments when we realize a skill has a previously unknown application. These plates, little red plates, if we do something interesting and different with them, we can start to recognize that they actually fit in a completely different way than we're used to. And as soon as you recognize that, you start to see more possibilities. I wasn't learning from the bricks in this moment having this or attending this professional development workshop, but I was learning from the possibilities and the creative autonomy that I would be able to enjoy for the rest of my life by seeing my skills in a different setting. I just had to commit to being brave enough to take a few risks. This is what led me to the job that I have now in career education with the Vancouver School Board. The biggest myth of the education system is that 13 years is exactly what everyone needs to be ready to go out and find happiness in the world. In my current role, along with my colleague here today, Allison Newton, we support students who are ready to be somewhere other than a high school classroom. From early childhood education to welding, emergency medical responder to bricklaying, we find creative pathways for students to get started on the first phase of their career journey. Just as I did with the students in beginning band, I need to figure out which skilled trade or dual credit program is the right fit for a student's aptitudes and curiosities. In one special case, a student came to me with a desire to become a funeral director, which is a regulated trade in our province. This meant I needed to do the research, make some phone calls, and share the students' curiosities about this particular career pathway. I'd have to be informed, I'd have to be creative. I can tell you that he is British Columbia's first ever youth apprentice in that particular trade, and is gainfully employed. I hope you never need to use his business, but such is life. In another case, a parent came to me with questions about how to harness her daughter's curiosity about buildings, how to turn the wide-eyed gaze upon trusses and ductwork into a personally meaningful learning pathway. That student explored work in sheet metal, spent time as an electrician apprentice, and is now starting training in welding. I'm glad I took the time to work with that family because, as you heard earlier, it actually led me to being here today. But of all of the ways that I've described my role in teaching, my favorite term is hope-monger. In contrast to the amount of fear-mongering going on, we should all strive to be a hope-monger. Young people are faced with a world of uncertainty, and unfortunately we as adults aren't helping with the many ways and incredible amount of time we spend talking about the uncertainty and hardship they may face. This doesn't build resilience. It won't inspire confidence and curiosity. This does, however, open up an opportunity for us to show young people what can be possible, an opportunity to activate their sense of wonder without worry. Our school district, just like everyone across the province, offers students a course called Work Experience. Students spend about 100 hours being mentored and introduced to the career experiences of a particular industry. We're always looking for employers to welcome the next generation into their world. It is one of the best ways for a young person to figure out if this is what leads to their happiness in the real world. At the same time, questions from a work experience for all of you could be an excellent and natural opportunity for you as professionals to keep refining how you communicate what is important and what needs to evolve in your industry. What I hope I've articulated today is that we all need a mentor as much as we have a responsibility to mentor others, to find as much joy from inviting questions as from asking them. The unexpected celebrity interactions are cool stories, sure, but those moments were brief. They each took a brief interest in me, and the feeling will last a lifetime. Imagine how you could make a young person feel about pursuing a creative career. So let me play the role of 6 for each of you, whether it's a colleague, a friend, or a work experience student getting their first peek behind the industrial curtain. What are you going to do? What will you do today that will lift someone else up to help them blossom? Something that will give someone more confidence and assurance to take a risk and explore the world. Creativity in our day-to-day work is easy. Creativity in strengthening our world is hard, but what we learn by inviting others into our world makes it easier. I hope you'll all take a moment to show appreciation for all of the blossoms and 6s in your life. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, come on up here. Now, what I'm going to ask everybody to do is twofold. Make sure your question is a question. I don't want any rambling diatribes. Also, please stand. And for the sake of our poor camera team, video and audio team, can you hold the mic right here? This doesn't work very well. They don't hear it. This they hear. And go ahead and introduce yourself with your name to the speaker. Tell them who you are. Who has a kick-ass first question? Okay, I saw you.
Hello, well, my name is Amal. I'm sure your students have learned lots from you over the years, and I'm curious about one thing that you've learned from them.
One thing I've learned from them, whatever you put into your students is what you're going to get back from them. That was the biggest thing that I learned as an early career teacher, thinking that I could go in and I could have a plan and it can be structured, and of course they'll just comply because I'm the teacher and they're the students. That we all know that doesn't work. They're teenagers and they have a heightened sense of autonomy that they maybe haven't grown into yet. And I started to learn really quickly that however I address them and whatever opportunity I give them to make decisions, they're going to make those decisions, and it's probably going to be more sustainable collectively. Anything that doesn't require a degree in music education is something that a teenager can do. So transferring a bunch of responsibility to them helped me recognize what they're capable of, and therefore how we'd be able to be working together.
Amazing. I saw hands over here. Where were they? Where'd they go? Where? Okay. Psst, psst, psst. It's all right.
Hi, thanks so much for your beautiful talk. I really appreciate it. How do you work with thank you. My name is Erin. How do you work with self-doubt when that shows up in students or adults or adults that are still kids inside? Like, how do you work with self-doubt?
When I was in university, I read the book The Inner Game of Music, and there's The Inner Game of Tennis and The Inner Game of blank. There's a number of them. And I became kind of a frustrating university student because as I was reading the book, I recognized, okay, on the left shoulder is the little voice that says you can't do it. On the right shoulder is the one that says you can. You have to work to just get rid of this one. And in the book, there's a few exercises to go through. There's one really good one with a triangle. It's sort of awareness, will, and trust. How do you make sure you have all three so you end up right in the middle there? And of all the exercises and the messages, one of them very clearly was, there's a point where this is what you can do. And if you're about to, as a musician, go and give a performance, you can't practice after it's done. You can't practice as you're walking on stage. So when it's time to go on stage, you can do what you can do, and now's the time to go and do it. And that, for me, just created this sort of objective voice in my head on this side to replace the subjective voice on this side saying, oh, well, that's not quite it. Just, I'm gonna do what I can do, and next time it could be better. It could be worse, it could be better. We'll see.
Hi. My name is Angel, and thanks for your talk. I really enjoyed it. My question is about how do you help your students figure out the most suitable career path, or like the best fit for them? Like, what's your process, or is it different every time?
It is nuanced. The biggest thing is questions like, where do you see yourself? Like, in what kind of physical space? And so, a student who says that they want to work outside, okay, well then that gets rid of a bunch of jobs. There's not a lot of like outdoor accountants, so we can probably narrow that down. But when students will say things like, I can see myself inside, but not at a desk, in front of a screen, but I want to work in construction. Okay, well then that means you're going to work in the service side, not in the construction side. A service plumber is inside a building that's already been built, but a construction plumber is in a building that is in the process of being built that probably doesn't have walls yet. Sometimes it's really technical things. I'll never forget a student in their interview for carpentry telling me that he was allergic to wood dust. So then it's my responsibility to say, aha, there's this other trade called interior systems mechanic, or lather, and they do steel stud framing. So you can do carpentry looking work, but with a steel product rather than a wood product. That's why it's nuanced, is that every kid has a slightly different situation. And we look at things like science and math and their interest in being able to work independently or have a sense of routine or variety in any given day. My colleague Allison is here. We do this all the time with students that are unsure. If they're really not sure, then there's programs like a trade sampler where they get to try a dozen different trades over 5 months and figure out which one fits for them. Kind of a choose your own adventure opportunity.
We can take a couple more questions, so I want you to think about it. I see you. I have a question. By the way, fun fact.
Yeah.
Aaron Jordan is a friend of mine, and I know Cirrus, and I had no idea did he go to Van Tech?
Yeah. I've known Cyrus since he was 12.
Yeah. Cyrus, yes, yeah. Cyrus. What a kid.
Yeah. What a talent.
What
now
a talent.
As an adult. Yeah, he's on tour. He's not here today because he's on tour, I think,
in
the US.
Yeah. I know. I've seen him perform. Holy shit. Okay. I had a question. Thank you. I'm like, what was I going to do? Question. Here's my question.
Yeah.
And I apologize if this is what somebody else is about to ask. We're in a transformative moment. Pedagogy, curriculum, education, declaring majors is all up in the air. Lots of uncertainty. Carrie, of course, knows this from even in the academy. They're like, why are we teaching people accounting when AI can just do this for us now? What has your, briefly, this could derail everything.
Yeah.
When you have students who come to you and they're like, I want to be a computer graphics artist, and you're like, oh dear. How do you handle that? What is the path? Because we're all going to be faced with this, with our kids going, hey, what should I do with my education so I can get a good career? And it's all seemingly unraveling.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things as a sort of data set for us to look at is that through the pandemic, there were career pathways that thrived, a sector of industry that grew, there was lots of opportunity, it didn't slow down, there weren't layoffs, there weren't all those very traumatizing things that many of us on a creative side of things could have experienced. Looking at something like that to recognize what's the resilience of a particular career pathway and a particular sector of industry. We don't typically, in this work, we don't work with students pursuing more pure university pathways. it's more technical college kind of pathways, but I mean, we partner with Langara for early childhood education, the Justice Institute for Emergency Medical Responder, you know, a lot of career pathways that involve human interaction, that if you removed the human interaction, talk about a super mundane life experience. And how will the children grow in early childhood education if we don't have those people doing that job, paid well? I think those are some of the things that we consider. Just thinking, you know, what's the resilience of a particular industry, and what's the potential resilience of this young person that's looking to make that transition?
I find it very interesting that when, you know, we're a similar age, when we were children, we were told the desk jobs, the professional jobs, the computer jobs, the white-collar jobs, that's where the security and the pay was.
Yeah, and now as a result.
Now you get to,
Yeah.
you have the pleasure of pushing people towards working with their hands, using their brains, and real problem-solving stuff that so far, no computer is going to do this for you.
And in the U.S., the statistic is for every 5 trades workers that retire, they take with them the tool fluency, the tool language, the
institutional
industrial
knowledge,
history, all those kinds of things, and one person is coming in. 5 out, 1 in. So what happens as humanity if we start losing some of
We
those
can't remember
things?
how to do plumbing.
Yeah.
We shit in the bush. There.
Hi, my name is Dana, and our pod really appreciated how you valued every student in your class. But one question we had is when you see something in a student, how do you navigate if their parents don't see that?
Okay, so I have, in the job that I'm in right now, I have had a couple of students that have said, I really want to go into a trade. Okay, great. Is anyone in your family working a trade? Nope. Any neighbors, family, friends, extended family? Nope. Okay, what do the folks in your family do? What do the adults in your life do for work? There was a student last year. It wasn't a snow day, but it was a snowy day, and I decided that the closest school that I could go and work at was Hamber. And so I went there, and I was like, I just need an office space or a desk to sit at, in the library, staff room, whatever. The counselor came to me and said, I've got this kid in grade 12, and he wants to go into metal fabrication. He thinks it's probably too late. I said, well, you're never going to believe it, but there's a program that starts in 2 weeks. I have 1 open seat. Let's see if we can make this happen. I sit down with the student. He wants to go into metal fabrication. He knows exactly what it's all about. What does your family do? Blah, blah, blah. Everyone's in academia. Everyone's in health research. I call his mom in what can only be described as a tear-filled conversation because she was seeing her son exit high school and she had no idea. There was some uncertainty. He's been very successful in his program and is on his way to a job. It's great. But in other cases, I've had students start work at the end of grade 11. So they're starting in a full-time paid apprenticeship. You know, by the time they get to graduation, they have $30,000 or $40,000 in the bank. They're graduating, you know, they're well on their way into their career. And I have parents, especially moms, that will get quite emotional about it. And it's because they're grieving the end of childhood. They thought they had another year of their child being a child, and they were kind of maybe in denial that their child was ready to go out into the world and function like an adult. And that's some of the strange experiences that we have to have in working with students and parents. I mean, for Allison and I, it's a lot of engaging with whole families. Sometimes it's just the student, but sometimes the whole family, to help them recognize what's possible. And you know, once they see their teenager getting up at 4:30 a.m. to be on a job site at 6:30, they can't understand what's going on because that's the same kid that could not show up on time to school across the street for years, but they'll take the bus across the city and be on the tools ready to go at 7 a.m.
Who wants to bravely do the last question? Where? Oh, okay, here we go.
Thank you. Thank you for your beautiful, beautiful talk. My name is Pia. I've been a teacher for about 40 years, so I loved a lot of the things that you were saying. And I also really loved this last question. But I wanted to go to the dark side of this last question, which you so deftly avoided. So in the more serious situations when it's not about a job, it's about that person's emotional state or their identity or their eating disorder or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know the long list of all the things I'm talking about. I've been there. I'm sure you've been there. How do you handle it? Because those are, like, when I look back over 40 years, those are the ones where I start to cry just thinking about them. It's like so hard. Like, you can save some kids and there's other kids you can't save. So I'm just wondering if you could tell us some of those stories.
Yeah, a university professor a little over 20 years ago one time said in a class that you'll understand why in a moment, I walked out of in the middle of. He said, "You can't save everyone, so don't try." Have a good day. I'm out. The students that come to us, some of them come to us with incredible personal stability, family stability, all those kinds of things. And in other cases, absolutely not. Newcomers to Canada, mental health issues, financial issues at home, lots of different things. There's a student a few years ago that came to me and had no idea what they wanted to do, but they wanted to work. And at that time, Smart 280, the Sheet Metal Workers Union here in Vancouver, they were looking for new members, and it would be for work in a shop, not on a construction site, so a little safer. So the first, I think, of 5 or 6 children in the family, I think he was number 3, he went to work with the Sheet Metal Workers Union. And a couple weeks in, he's like, "Can my brothers do this too?" Yep. So he and his 2 older brothers and his mom went from living in a 2, maybe or 3-bedroom home, 7 of them all together in the house, or in the apartment, with a lot of financial struggle, to each of them, by the time they have the red seal, earning about $110,000 to $120,000 a year, and that's about a 4-year timeline from day 1 to getting your certification. So imagine that family trying to scrape things together to suddenly being a family earning that kind of money collectively. It totally shifts the trajectory of what a family can do. I loved my time teaching music, I did. But the economic benefit and the generational change and impact that this job has is wild. I don't take this job for granted in any way, because I know that there are those families that 50, 60 years from now, children will be born whose lives are changed because some kid came into me or some counselor came to me and said, "Hey, this kid wants to do this." And I don't say this to be like forcefully selfless, but I hear a lot, because you hear stories like that and people will say things like, you know, "You're saving lives, you're doing amazing things." Okay, yes, thank you, sure. But when that kid came in and sat down and was willing to start talking, they saved their life. That was the moment that they saved the trajectory of their life. And the fact that he was willing to talk openly about it at home, to get 3 more family members into the union, that is amazing. And that's where the generational change goes. So who saved whose life? Well, I think son number 3 saved the majority of the lives in that family and lives to come. Thank you for that question.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Reid.